podcast that you're about to listen to may cause some listeners to say, "Oh boy, I like the Singularity Podcast. Yay!"
Well, hey there, happy innovators. How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing all right. I'm doing pretty good. Thought I'd sit down today and do a little bit of talking for y'all. And, I hope that you're enjoying the new PC3 music that I've released over the past month or so. And there's plenty of more music coming. Trust me, I'm working on lots of new stuff. Not doing much else other than working on new pipe choir music and new PC3 music. But I should mention, I guess, that recently I've started to paint again, which is kind of cool. It's like one of those things, it's like when the time is right, I sit down and I do that every once in a while. I've been painting on and off really for my entire life. So, it's fun to do, kind of keep the chops up, of painting and fine art as opposed to just making music all the time, So anyway, here we go. Another 5 days. The new format, I think, for the Singularity Podcast. So, without further ado, today is Monday, October 9th, 2023. And, I was wanting to talk about this funny little thing that happened not too long ago. Maybe about a year and a half ago, I had the desire to buy an American flag because I didn't really have one, And believe it or not, I've, over the years, kind of established a little bit of a flag collection. I have a lot of different flags from different countries. And even at one point, I had asked some of my friends from around the world, fans of pipe choir and PC3, to do a flag exchange with me. So they would send me a flag from their country, and I would send them an American flag. So I bought all these flags and distributed them out to my friends, around the world. And I didn't buy one for myself. Okay? And so, maybe a year or so after that, all that, I had this pile of flags from all over the world. It was really cool. People wrote on them, different things, different, sayings and quotes, and they would mail me a flag. And it was really, I thought anyway, really cool. I mean, some people were like, "Why are we doing this?" And I'm like, because I want to, I'm asking you to. There's no real deep meaning or anything. I'm just doing it to do it. So the long and the short of it is I have this flag collection, right? But I didn't have an American flag for myself. So I went to the store to buy myself an American flag. And I did. Bought it, brought it home. And, kind of didn't think too much of it, But then my folks passed away and all that kind of stuff. And I inherited a lot of stuff from my parents. And one of the things I inherited was a bunch of American flags that either my father had purchased, my mother had purchased, or even my grandparents had purchased. So some of these flags were really old. Some of them were relatively new. And all of a sudden I found myself with not only the flag that I bought for myself, but maybe 4 or 5 other flags. So I'm like, what am I going to do with all these American flags? I have all these flags for what? Where am I going to put them, or where am I going to display them? I didn't really know. So maybe a couple days after that, my sister sends me this book, and the book is called Cleveland in World War II, and it's written by Brian Albrecht and James Banks. And I'm looking at the book right now. I have it here. And my sister had sent it to me because featured in this book about the city of Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from, there's a paragraph or two dedicated to my family, because my family, back in the days of World War II, there was a family of 7, like my father's uncles. They were serving in the military. So there were 7 sons, and 6 of them enlisted into the military and were serving overseas during World War II. And I mean, it's noteworthy, right? Because of the sacrifice this family made, that 6 out of their 7 children were fighting in the armed forces. And I'm bringing it all up because I thought it was really kind of strange timing that my sister had sent me this book. I had just gotten all these flags, and I was wondering, why do I have so many flags? But now I think I get it. I have a flag for each one of my uncles that served in the military in World War II. So it's got me thinking about this whole idea of flags. You know, it's kind of a big deal these days. I mean, when you think about it, really, this idea of a flag, what does it mean when a flag is raised? You know, it's no small thing when a flag is raised, you know, over certain soil, right? It has meaning. You know, like when there's a military exchange of any kind, flags are a way of disseminating who is who and what is what, right? And, you know, when an area of land is conquered and a flag is raised, you know, by the conquering army, it's a big deal. I mean, remember the famous image of Iwo Jima, you know, the soldiers hoisting the flag up manually, you know, after this big battle and everything. And oh my gosh, you know, it's an iconic image now, but it's iconic for a reason. You know, it's because that means something, you know, when you raise a flag like that. And I was just, you know, recently checking out something. They were talking about the whole January 6th thing that happened, and somebody was mentioning how, you know, there was this breach of the Capitol building, and somebody had brought a Confederate flag into the Capitol building, which historically would be, you know, unthinkable or a disgrace to bring that into that building. And I thought about that. Like, I never really heard anybody express that kind of thing, that back in the day, you know, the days of the Civil War, and when America was divided like it was, nobody would even think about bringing that Confederate flag into the Capitol building. And the fact that it had happened recently, you know, January 6th, you know, I had never thought about it that way. I had never heard anybody say it, you know. But it got me to thinking about how there's a flag that's very, very popular now. It's common. You see it everywhere. It's a rainbow flag, right? And, man, you see it everywhere, you know? And I just kind of wonder sometimes when I think about it, especially with everything that's going on right now in the United States, I kind of wonder, you know, is that flag representative of a nation? You know, it's not really just a group of people, really, from one country or another. You know, it's a flag that represents many people all over the world. And, you know, people here, at least in America, as far as I can tell, are encouraged to fly that flag. You know, it's seen as a sign of what? Tolerance or acceptance or, empathy for the plight of the community. Or, it's a symbol of a group of people, and an ethos and a political conviction, right? This rainbow flag. And it just got me to thinking, like, isn't it strange that we have a situation where somebody can't bring the Confederate flag into the Capitol building because it would be disgraceful? Okay, but why is it okay for any other flag to be in there then? Like, wouldn't it be disgraceful to have any flag other than an American flag or a flag that represents one of the United States? Any one of them, Why is it okay that the rainbow flag is everywhere? Absolutely everywhere. Schools, buildings, public spaces. But something like the Confederate flag, that's not acceptable. I don't understand that. Maybe somebody could explain that to me. Okay, today is Tuesday, October 10th. Yesterday I was talking about the flag in the Capitol building during the January 6th situation. And, I gotta say, I had some more thoughts about that whole situation on January 6th at the Capitol building, this famous moment where the insurrection took place. Yeah, so, a few years back, actually a long time ago now, probably almost 20 years ago, my wife and I lived in Washington, D.C. for a year. And I gotta tell you, I hear all this stuff about what happened at the Capitol building. And, it's a huge controversy, here in the United States. And, it's such a big deal. But I gotta say, I don't know, it doesn't make too much sense to me, because while I lived in Washington, D.C. for a year, and it was only a year, so, doesn't mean I know everything, okay? But what I do know is that I spent a lot of that year on the mall area of Washington, D.C. And, man, I went to every building, everything I could see I wanted to see. I'm fascinated by that stuff. I love it. And I don't care what your politics are, and you shouldn't care what mine are either. I just like that stuff. Okay, I think it's neat. And I spent the whole year going to as many places as I could in Washington, D.C. And one thing that I know for sure, okay, and this is like 20 years ago, okay, is that, you can't just go wandering into any building you want to in Washington, D.C. Okay? You can't. There are metal detectors. You have to go through lines to, there's screenings for certain people, for certain buildings. I mean, it's like you can't just go waltzing into the Capitol building or something like that. You can't. It's impossible. Okay? And, anybody that tries, okay, it's considered an act of aggression, a breach, an act of war, maybe even, to enter one of those buildings without the proper permission and the channels that you need to go through to be able to go in to any one of those buildings there in Washington, D.C. Not just the Capitol building, okay? We're talking about everywhere, okay? Every time I wanted to go into a building Smithsonian Institute, the Washington Monument, you name it. Any one of those structures that are there for the public to view, if you want to get in, you got to wait. They got to put a metal detector over your ass, before you go into anywhere, So when I see this story about how these guys, these people, these protesters were storming the Capitol building and they got in, I don't know. It's kind of like this. Like, from my understanding of Washington, D.C., which is rather intimate, understanding. I did live there for a while, and I was there, and I know what it was like while I was there 20 years ago, just post 9/11, by the way. If you walk into one of those buildings without the proper, clearance or whatever, they'll shoot your ass. They'll leave you where they find you. They don't have to ask questions or anything like that. They don't have to arrest you or something. If you walk into one of those buildings, especially if you're looking to cause harm or whatever, there are plenty of people in those buildings that are armed. They are military. They are guarding the building. And if you step into the wrong place at the wrong time, it'll be the last thing you ever do. Okay? And so when I see this footage of the insurrection on January 6th, of these people just walking around inside the Capitol building, I don't know about that. You can call me a conspiracy theorist or delusional or whatever. I don't mind. But one thing I do know is that you don't just go walking into any of those buildings that are there in Washington, D.C. And if you try to, okay, you might get to the door, but they're going to drop your ass. You're dead. It's an act of aggression to mess around in any one of those buildings. And that was my personal experience there. My understanding, having been there for a while and really had the opportunity to see everything there was to see in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, there's my thoughts on that. Maybe I'm wrong, but you can think what you want to think, and I can think what I want to think. You know what I mean? Okay, today is Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. I was talking to a friend of mine about the idea of money, wealth, how much money is enough money and how much is too much and all that kind of stuff, just I guess typical things that you would think about, or I would think about, right? I mean, that's pretty normal, right? I mean, money is the kind of thing where, for a lot of people anyway, it's like they're always chasing the buck. Their whole existence is based on this idea of making money. They work, they invest, or whatever they do, whatever it is they're doing, for the most part, okay? They're usually doing it either to save money somehow or to make money somehow, okay? But I wanted to take the conversation one step further, because let me ask you a question, okay? Does it matter how you make your money? Or is it all that matters is that you do have money? Okay? That's a good question, but it's pretty clear to me, I think that it's not enough to just have a lot of money. I think that it matters a great deal how you make your money. You know, in my belief system, in my point of view, okay, my way of thinking, the way I see the world, I think that it matters how you make your money. And I think that sometimes money, the actual currency, the money, the paper, you know, that you buy things with, can actually be cursed, depending on how you got that money. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Does it sound too superstitious to you? Maybe it does. And I would understand that, but I would disagree. You know? I'm sure that most of you that are listening to this can remember, you know, a few years back there was a show called Breaking Bad. Oh, it was a great show. You know, oh my gosh, like, especially in the wake of Sopranos, you know, and how Sopranos had stopped. That was over with. That was done. And then along came this other show, Breaking Bad. And, oh, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But I think that in hindsight, looking back on that whole series of Breaking Bad, okay, the moral to the story was a lot like what I'm saying here, that it matters how you get your money. And, you know, the Walter White character, spoiler alert, the Walter White character finds out in the end that it's not enough to have a lot of money. That's not all there is to it. And you trade, really, in a lot of ways, you know, you trade your own well-being or your own justice or your own sense of dignity and salvation, really, when you forego your personal virtue in order to make money. Like when you trade virtue for monetary gain. I believe that that money can be cursed and it will be your undoing, you know, or it could be your undoing. Like, it matters. It matters how you make your money. It's one thing to be wealthy and to have made it from hard work, sweat and muscle, without destroying the lives of other people, you know? But when you trade your morality, your morals for money, that poses a pretty big problem. Now, to a lot of people, that's probably not an issue, okay? And they probably would say that I'm whacked out, I'm too superstitious, and, you know, there is no connection. There's no spiritual connection to your money and how you make your money. But I can live with that. You know, I don't care. I think, personally, having thought about it for a while now, here, this Wednesday morning, I don't know. I think that it matters how we make our money. And, you know, I don't really have any reason to be thinking about that, but sometimes I think about stuff that just pops into my head. And I think about it. And then I talk about it here on the podcast, you know. So I hope you were entertained. And, yeah, that's all I want to say about that. Okay, today is Thursday, October 12th, 2023. I was listening to this song from back in the day. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. It was a hip-hop song by a group called the Digital Underground, and the song was called the Humpty Dance, you know? And back in the day when that song came out, I thought it was funny. And I liked the way that it sounded, you know? And, you know, like I was saying the other day, I heard that song come on the radio or something. I heard it somewhere. And, it sounded so good, like now, compared to a lot of the hip hop music that's coming out now, Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, okay? I don't really like hip hop music, okay? It's not my thing, especially, newer hip hop music. I just don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't like it. I think it sounds awful a lot of the time. It's not all bad, okay? Nothing is ever all bad. There's usually some kind of redeeming quality about any music that's being made. That's how I feel. But I'm not a big fan of hip hop. But it did get me to thinking about that. That I grew up in this era when you had, well, really the beginnings of rap music and hip hop music. And that happened right when I was in my adolescence. I was right there. When MTV started and, Run DMC was doing Walk This Way with Aerosmith and The King of Rock by Run DMC and Public Enemy, NWA and, this music that now is like iconic and, it made history, hip hop, rap history, but when I listen to that, like the Beastie Boys even, remember the Beastie Boys? Oh man, they still sound so fat when you listen to their songs, like even now, but it really kind of bums me out a little bit, because you would think that with the progressions of technology and how technology is advanced over the past 20 or even 30 years in some cases, right? You'd think that the music we would be hearing now from the hip hop community would be so awesome, and I don't think that it is. Now, to be fair, like I don't listen to a lot of hip hop or rap music now. I don't. So I wouldn't know a whole lot like about if there was a group out there that stood out and they were doing something really different and really innovative. Okay? But I guess if you're listening to this and you can think of a hip hop group or a rap group that you would recommend I listen to that came out in the past 10 years, hey, I would be willing to listen and give it a shot and probably even talk about it in a future podcast. But I don't think you're going to be able to hand me anything that sounds better than the Beastie Boys. I don't think you're going to be able to hand me anything that sounds better than Public Enemy from back in the day. And I got to say here, right now, Chuck D from Public Enemy, in my opinion, has the best voice ever in rap music. But even like a group like Cypress Hill, they are so good. And they came out back in the day, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? I mean, that's when they were making their stuff. I mean, they're still going too, don't get me wrong. But we're talking about, the origins, of hip-hop and rap. And while I don't like modern day hip-hop, I do have a lot of interest in that older style, that older production style of rap and hip-hop, where there was actually humor and it was funny, and they had a rap group needed to have a voice, somebody in that group, or maybe even a couple members like Run DMC, Beastie Boys, Public Enemy, of course, with Chuck D and Flavor Flav, Cypress Hill, right? More than one voice, that was unique and a style, and I don't know, maybe I'm way off base here, but I was listening to Humpty Dance the other day, and I thought to myself, this sounds so much better now than it did even back when it came out. It's kind of funny. The production is great. The beat is great. The idea is funny. I don't know. Is it worth mentioning? I think so. Yeah, I think so. Because I'm waiting for that new thing to come. That new group to come from out of nowhere that just makes everybody just stop and reconsider, the state of the music that they make. It's going to happen. I'm pretty sure every few years or so there's somebody that comes along, like Eminem did, absolutely brilliant. There's no question about it. That guy is amazing, but even Snoop Dogg, So, yeah, I don't know. That's just my opinion about it. I like music. I listen to a lot of different music, and there's a lot of music I don't listen to as well. So, there you go. Alrighty then. Let's see here. It's the last day of the week, Friday, October 13th. And I got some thoughts for you today. Okay? Does anybody want to say, it's Friday? Yay! Let me ask you a question. Do you believe in ghosts? Spirits, ghosts, stuff like that? Because I do. I believe in ghosts. I do. Wholeheartedly, full on, without any doubt. I believe that ghosts exist. They are real. Spirits are real. And, I never had a problem wrapping my head around that idea, But let's just say, for the sake of conversation today, that when I asked you, the listener, do you believe in ghosts? Let's say you said, no, I don't believe. Okay. Conversation over. Done, right? But when I asked you the question, do you believe in ghosts and spirits? And if you said yes, okay, now we're on to something, right? This is a conversation now. Now that we've established that we both believe in ghosts, let me ask you another question. What is a ghost? Okay, who becomes a ghost? Or how does one become a ghost? If they were a person at one time, okay, and they died, and somehow, in that process, they didn't go where everybody else goes. They went to this other form of existence. Not a heaven, not a hell, but they're in between. And I wonder that. Ever since I was a little kid, I wondered that. Who becomes a ghost? And, traditionally, I guess we would think that it would be somebody, who died a tragic death or, a premature death, and, they haunt the place where they died. Maybe in some cases, people have said they are spirits that are not aware that they have died. Wow, isn't that strange? Is a ghost somebody that's in a dream that they died in their sleep, or they didn't realize they had died? So they think they're sleeping still? They're in a dream? Is that possible? Whoa. What a thought, right? Do you guys ever think about this kind of stuff? Because I do. I think it's fascinating, to consider, what exactly goes on, after we leave our bodies. What exactly goes on when we die? Do we, move on to what? And who moves on to where and for what reasons? what is a ghost? When people see a ghost, or a spirit, or a shadow, or a thing, something that is there that shouldn't be, but they can see it. And maybe sometimes they talk to people, or they communicate with people. What is up with that? Now, a lot of the time I think that there are spirits that are malevolent and powerful and evil, and they want into our reality or into our dimension. They want in, and they have to access it vicariously through some person that is alive. Okay. And oh man, that's a whole separate conversation. But what is a ghost? What is a spirit? When we see a ghost, how do they get there? Are they self-aware? Do they know what is going on? Or do they see us? Are they aware of us? I don't know. But I think it's a great question. And one that I'm, I guess content to end this podcast with today. Maybe you'll let me know in the comments what you think, and maybe I'll pick it up again in a future podcast. Trying to make this podcast more of a communication between you and I as much as I can. And, we'll see how it goes. But I, for one, I believe in ghosts, and I am not quite sure exactly the process in which somebody becomes a ghost. But I guess I can say this before I let you go for today. Maybe it's possible, that when we die, we are given judgment, by what I believe is Almighty God, the God of Israel. I believe that, I believe that when we die, we are judged. But maybe, out of mercy, because some people are probably so afraid of that judgment that maybe out of mercy, God allows some of them to not be judged right away. And maybe they have the chance to kind of work it out somehow before judgment is laid down on them. And maybe that's what we see when we see a ghost. Somebody who has avoided judgment for one reason or another and will eventually be judged and given the afterlife that they have earned. And that's about as weird as I'm going to get today. So, I'll admit this isn't one of my stronger podcasts, but who cares? It's all in good fun, right? We're allowed to think what we want. We're allowed to say what we want. And, just try to be good to each other, right? Anyway, my happy innovators, have a good weekend. And remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy. Okay, happy innovators. I got some music for you today at the end of the podcast. And what I want to share with you today is a song that I wrote a long time ago called A Slave to Nothing. And, I wrote this song a long time ago. And when I first wrote it, I thought it was okay. I was happy with it. And, I told the story before about how in some other podcast, I don't remember which one, I told the story about how I had sent this song out to a mastering house when I finished it as an experiment to see if I should have my music professionally mastered by someone. And, you know, I told the story about how it was a complete disaster, and the guy who mastered it was a real asshole. And, oh my gosh, it was awful. He handed me back something that was just total crap. Basically, I got ripped off again by somebody, and I decided to buy mastering software and start mastering my own music, learning how to do it and all that. And this was the song that got that whole thing started. But I want to share with you today a version of the song from the album The Wrench and the Rubicon, which I'm going to be doing a description for, very shortly. And I just wanted to share it because I like it. I redid it, I reimagined it, and changed it around a lot. And, of course, when I redid it, I have new technology, new equipment and stuff. And I think anyway, gave it a facelift and turned it into something that I'm actually quite proud of. So, without further ado, here we go. Pipe Choir's A Slave to Nothing from the Wrench and the Rubicon album. Take it easy, everybody.
standing up straight. Can you hear? Can anybody? Be a slave to nothing. A slave to nothing. Be a slave to nothing. A slave to watching in